Okay, I was actually going to do a separate video talking about the Jrue Holiday trade, but now with the wake of the Kristaps Porzingis trade happening literally the day after they traded Jrue, I decided, you know what, screw it, let's do a 2-for-1. So let's go through both of these trades one by one, and I will give my thoughts on them. So yesterday's trade was involving Jrue Holiday, obviously. Jrue gets traded to the Portland Trailblazers for Anthony Simons and 2 second-round picks. The other one, today's trade, was Kristaps Porzingis going to the Atlanta Hawks in exchange for Georges Niang from Atlanta and a second rounder. Niang and the second rounder will be heading to the Boston Celtics, whereas the Atlanta Hawks send Terrence Mann and their number 22 overall pick to the Brooklyn Nets. So, and obviously, I talked about it in my series recap vid when I talked about the Boston Celtics going forward, especially when they got absolutely got the doors blown off them by the New York Knicks in Madison Square Garden on that Friday night in Game 6. I talked about their future, and their starting lineup was going to be was like shout out All Pro Sports Talk for this, and obviously I discussed it in my video too. I read a post about it where the Boston Celtics starting lineup was going to be owed $500 million. That's their starting lineup. And I also read in that same post, you guys can go back and watch that vid. I addressed it, I think, in the middle of the video, where the Boston Celtics were going to have to pay the luxury tax, which would have been higher than their players' payroll if they kept Jrue and KP. It would have been the first time in history a team would have had to do that, and it would be a lot to take on. I think Boston got new ownership as well. I mean, a lot of these teams are getting like freaking ownership or turnovers and overship, my Lakers included. But now with these two trades, obviously they are safe from the second apron. They shedded salary. They saved $180 million, and now they're $4.5 million under the second apron. Obviously, George Niang, if I never really voiced my opinion about George Niang, but I was like joking about it with my coworkers earlier today. Imagine being a team that's contending for the finals and your first thought is to trade for George Niang. I don't think you've ever said that, nor have heard a team that was serious about winning a championship say that. Obviously, some of y'all are going to say the Philadelphia 76ers. Yeah, look what happened to them. And that kind of sucks because I actually wanted them to get Terrence Mann. I thought they got Terrence Mann. I'm just like, okay, they got Anthony, they got T-Man, they got Niang, but they just ended up getting Anthony and Niang. And I think if they got Terrence's contract, they still would have been in second apron hell. But overall, I get what they were going for. I think they could have done something better, but if this was the best trade that was going to get them under the second apron, then so be it. But the Anthony Simons one is interesting because I said it in my Pacers video that I think the Anthony should be pursued by the Indiana Pacers, just so you know what I'm saying. He could probably be the guy that could take pressure off of Andrew Nemhart, and he could be Tyrese Halliburton's stand-in. But now Anthony Simons, he's on a team where Jaylen Brown's obviously going to be Jaylen Brown and Derek White are going to be the best players, but Anthony is going to fill in a lot of scoring, bro. Anthony this past year, well, actually, I should date back to his last 4 seasons, ever since they let guys like Norman Powell and CJ McCollum go. In 2021-22, Anthony averaged 17 a game, 4 assists, and 2.6 rebounds. 2023 averaged 21 points, 4 rebounds, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, I should say. The season 2024, he averaged 22.6 with a career high 5.5 assists a game and a career high 3.6 rebounds a game. And then this past season, he averaged 19.3 in 70 games he played for the Blazers. And now, what's the key that stands out here? Obviously, Anthony, he's always been a good shooter. His lowest percentage that he shot throughout his career was his second year with the Portland Trailblazers, where he shot 33.2. Ever since then, he had a career high in threes in his 3-point percentage in 2021 at 42.6. So, and then last year, 36.3, 2024, 38.5. So Anthony is the type of shooter that Boston needs. He's the type of scorer and combo guard that Boston needs, especially with Tatum being out. And I think the thing about it too, bro, is that it keeps Peyton Pritchard on the bench. Because let's say they didn't make the Porzingis move, or the Holiday move or both, there was a chance that Peyton Pritchard could have been the starting lineup, or Al Horford would have been in the starting lineup. And Peyton Pritchard, both these guys at these junctures of their careers, Al is at the back end of his career. Peyton Pritchard will be in his, I believe, fifth or sixth season, if I'm not mistaken. Peyton Pritchard would have had to come off the bench. Well, he would have been had to be inserted to the starting lineup, and that's key because if you take Peyton Pritchard into the Celtics starting lineup, which would have happened, in my opinion, if they didn't make these trades for Anthony or Niang, they would have no bench. They would have the same issues that the Lakers had this past year, where everyone's saying, "Oh, Luka, LeBron, Reeves." Here's the problem: we had no bench, right? So I think this trade does a lot of good for Boston, especially since they're no longer in salary cap hell. Obviously, as a basketball fan, I wanted T-Man on the roster because I think T-Man is the picture-perfect replacement for Holiday, especially for what they need. Obviously, he's played next to Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. I'm confident he could do the things he could do next to Jaylen Brown and a healthy Jason Tatum, and he's played with the Derek White before and Reggie Jackson. So from a basketball standpoint, I would have loved T-Man on the roster, but I think George's contract, um, I think it helps Boston get under the second apron. Whereas if they took on Terrence Mann's salary, it would have been no different than taking on a guy like, I don't know, Porzingis or Holiday. So now, before I launch even further on what the Celtics could do, especially when it comes to getting a starting caliber big, Trey and the Hawks, I think they got better because they still have Dyson Daniels. They still have that Ricochet, I can't pronounce his name. That Zachary Ricochet guy. I can't pronounce his name, bro. But that Zachary kid that they drafted with the number one overall pick, they still have Porzingis, and the Atlanta Hawks are looking for high impact players. I saw a post on it where it had Dylan Brooks and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They could target those guys to help shadow Trey and give Trey the help he needs, especially when he needs to get shielded on defense. And they could make moves themselves, getting, I don't know, an Anthony Davis from the Dallas Mavericks, especially if Cooper Flag emerges as the player he was meant to be. But when it comes to the Boston Celtics targeting a big, I'm looking at the names on Spot Track, bro, and I don't see really that much of appealing names. Then again, maybe I'm just focusing too much on the names. You dig? But look at the guys. I'm gonna name these guys off for you: Brooke Lopez, Clint Capella, Miles Turner, Nas Reed, Mo Wagner, Looney, Drummond, Taj Gibson, Mason Plumlee, DJ, DeAndre Jordan, Tristan, Cornette, who I think they do keep, but I think he's like your I don't want to say your third string big, but he's a big that helps with your depth. I think he should be, I guess, untouchable. Maybe that's a stretch. Santi Aldama, Day'Ron Sharp, Jax Hayes. So they could target maybe Santi or Jax. But those guys, none of those guys are not really starting caliber bigs. Maybe a Mason Plumlee, but Mason is a clown. DJ is old. Tristan is a clown himself for obvious reasons. Looney Tunes, they could get him, and I wouldn't have a problem if Boston got Looney Tunes. But I don't know if he wants to leave Golden State after 10 amazing seasons. And obviously, everyone's asking, what if Steph didn't get hurt in the series against the Minnesota T-Wolves? I would be interested to see if Capella could complement this team. I think he could help the Celtics a little bit, but he's not a floor spacer. Miles Turner, I did say in my Pacers video that he should stay with the Indiana Pacers and the Pacers should focus on extending him. Obviously, Al Horford stays for a vet minimum. I'm looking at all these other guys like B-Ball Paul. He's cool, but he's a backup for a reason. Sandro Mamukelashvili, Mamu. I don't know, bro. Like all these guys that I'm looking at on my on Spot Track when it comes to like bigs, I don't know if they're appealing enough to not necessarily replace, but to, well, I guess they are gonna replace him, to replace what Porzingis brought to the team, because Porzingis was a one of a kind player. He did things that Grant Williams and Robert Williams III were not able to do for the Boston Celtics. Obviously, Porzingis is as injured as a Time Lord, right? And obviously Grant Williams has an ACL injury. But I don't know, bro. Like the bigs are gonna be kind of a screwy situation for Boston, especially since I would have liked them to see at least pursue Danny Gafford, but Danny Gafford just recently signed a 3-year extension with the Dallas Mavericks. So I do like the moves for Boston, especially they get Anthony. Anthony is a dog. And I've seen Anthony play really good defense when he was next to Dame, CJ, Norman Powell, and then at one point Gary Trent Jr. I've seen Anthony be a high volume scorer. And again, when Jason Tatum comes back healthy, I think Anthony complements both him and Jaylen Brown and Derek White really, really well. But as of right now, I don't know how it's going to look when it comes to them trying to get a big. They could trade for one. If you guys know what bigs Boston should target after getting rid of Porzingis because of salary cap issues, just let me know in the comments. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think that Boston had a good return on what they got for Jrue and Porzingis, or do you guys think they should have went for something better? Because at the end of the day, I definitely think I wanted Terrence Mann on the Celtics, but I had everyone, and myself included, got to remember that these are cost-cutting trades. They did not want to keep these players because of the fact that they were going to be in a very bad spot salary cap wise, and they would have had to pay the luxury tax, which would have been higher than their players' payroll. Which again, it would have been the first time in NBA history a team has to do that. So I don't. Again, George Niang sucks, but his contract fits the Celtics' needs to get away from that second apron. Right? They're under the second apron after that deal, and then Anthony Simons again, same type of thing, but I think you get a really good player that could I don't want to say replace Drew Holiday, but he could really flourish in that Boston system. And I think he fits Joe Mazzulla's system to a T because he can hit threes. He's a good high volume scorer, and the most important part is that he could be the third best player next to Jaylen Brown and Derek White. And I think when Jason Tatum comes back in the 2026-27 season, Anthony can be a really sneaky good weapon for this Boston team. I think they'll be ready to contend in 2026-27. So those are my thoughts about these two trades. I want to get on here and give a little bit of y'all time, or give a little bit of my take. Hopefully you guys enjoy this video, man. More off-season videos coming soon. I have a gameplay video for Mortal Kombat 11. I play as the Joker, but I filmed that again I think it was during COVID before the release of MK11 Aftermath. More videos like that coming soon. And if there's any other trades, I will be definitely on here to talk about it with y'all. And again, I do have some vids planned. I may make a video on the Wizards. They could be sneaky good next year. But again, that's all I'm going to say. I may make a video, though, expanding my thoughts about the Kevin Durant trade because I was only able to talk about it for a good 5 minutes because I mainly focused on Oklahoma City and the Pacers. So until next time, guys, that's the end of this video. I'm X. Deuces.